started. This is a monumentous event for San Leandro. We were expecting sunny skies. We got the rain that we much needed, but I fully expect to see a rainbow soon in honor of the event. So with that, welcome today. This is a day that we're celebrating both the opening of our new police area and also the Surlene grant room. As you can imagine, for something so important, there are many dignitaries here, many community members here, and just people who really care about San Leandro. And so if I miss somebody, I'm sorry. I've tried to keep a running list, but I could introduce probably everybody in the audience. But I do want to introduce my council. Councilmember Brian Acevedo is here. I'm going to go ahead and we can clap after groups. How's that? Because we've got a lot of people here. So we've got Councilmember Brian Acevedo, Fred Simon, Councilmember Karina Lopez, and Councilmember Pete Ballou here with our council. Our city manager, Fran Robustelli, and Janelle Cameron, if you haven't met her, and also our police chief, Fidgen, I'm going to be looking around like crazy. Anyway, he's here, so we'll give them a round of applause. We have former Mayor Emeritus Sheila Young, Mayor Stephen Cassidy, former Councilmember Jim Prola, former Councilmember Ursula Reed with Miles, and Councilmember Michael Gregory, former Councilmember Lee Thomas, former Councilmember Diana Souza, and former Councilmember Bob Glaze. Okay, we also have John Germanis, a former city manager. We have Rita Duncan from the Oraloma District, and Diana Prola from the San Leandro School Boards. Oh, and Monique Tate, sorry. You know, it's so difficult to see everybody with their masks on and so forth, so we can't wait for this to be over. With that, I'm going to ask Surlene when it's time to introduce some of her esteemed guests, and that way she's busy taking notes right now, so thank you. And then the last I want to thank our staff. Our staff has really gone beyond the call of duty, not only in planning the different amenities that you're going to see, planning the room, making sure that today's event happens. It just goes all into saying what a wonderful staff we have, and I really appreciate it, and I want to give them a big hand. Okay. Today, so I want to say that we're honoring two influential women today. We're honoring, of course, Surlene G. Grant today, and we'll be cutting a ribbon for the community room that we are honoring her with. But we're also honoring Helen Lawrence. And when the council had this decision of how we were going to how we were going to honor Surlene, we went through a lot of renditions and talking and so forth. But it came down to a community room would be the most appropriate because Surlene is about community. We also have this room over here, or the South offices as we call them, or the Helen Lawrence offices. And so one of the things I just wanted to get a little community interest thing is, so I have this picture of Helen Lawrence actually talking to two of her constituents. They were young children at the time, and they were giving their aluminum pots to Mayor Lawrence for the war effort, and she was taking them. And so these two young girls were her neighbors. And then I have a picture of these two women, now 88 and 85, I believe, with me in my office, because one of them happens to be my mother-in-law and the other one is my auntie, and they just happen to live across from Helen Lawrence. But I just wanted to say what a circle we have in San Leandro. We really have a community, and that I think is really what we're honoring here. we're honoring, of course, Surlene, and you're going to hear more about that in the program, but we're honoring our community. So, a little bit of a challenge here. So the South Office building was dedicated to Helen Lawrence, San Leandro's mayor from 1941 until 44. She was the first female mayor and one of the county's first Portuguese mayors, the country's first Portuguese mayor. The community room is dedicated to Surlene Grant, the city's first African-American council member. A couple of our speakers later in the program will touch on Surlene's service to our community during her city council years and her current work in the community. And I'd like to acknowledge the city council members who were seated at the time that we decided to name the room after Surlene, and that would be council members Deborah Cox, Ed Hernandez, Lee Thomas, Benny Lee, Karina Lopez, and Pete Ballou. So thank you for that. So the list of amenities for both sections of the building. If you'll notice, when there's going to be tours available, after we have our presentation, if you look over to my right, your left, we're going to see a couple people standing by the doors, and they will take you on tours, but we're going to make sure that everyone who goes on the tour, we're asked that they're vaccinated, and then, of course, wearing your mask. So what you'll see is the police lobby, the public lobby. It's got a little children's alcove, trying to make coming to the police department a little bit less scary. Sometimes when people are very emotional when they come to the police department, and we want to make sure that we're trying to make it a little bit less scary for some people, and so that was something that we made sure that we put in. The physical training room with lockers, shower rooms, restrooms available for all city staff, and of course the police department. Office space for traffic, record supervisor, traffic sergeants, police support service manager, emergency services specialist, and volunteers. And then 2 quiet rooms to be used for one can be used for a lactation room. It could also be used for officers who are on between duties and need a place to rest before they go on to another job assignment. There's an interview room, a live scan, fingerprinting room, a break room with full kitchen and tables and chairs, and in fact they got the stove that I really wanted inside City Hall and the city manager's office, and they got it. So, just saying. There's also a conference room and the LED lighting with the skylights. In the Surlene Grant room, you're going to see a projector, retractable screen, and camera on each of the 4 walls to broadcast the meetings, so we can actually hold meetings in there and be fully hooked up to the internet, and also broadcasting them out to the community. Portable microphones for meetings, assisted listening systems, chairs and, of course, tables, folding storage rooms for the chairs and tables, and all of the equipment will be able to be stored so it's not right in front of everyone. And then it's got a full kitchen also with everything there. And then there's 3 single-use restrooms for people. This is going to be a place that we can rent out to the community to come and have meetings or have events. If you were ever at our city council meetings with the Sister City room, you know that you would be looking one way and you'd have to look this way around one column and look this way around another column, because there were many things that were preventing you from being all one in that room. And so this is going to be the room. This is the answer to our hopes. So with that, I want to introduce Keith Cook for some words about the building. So Keith.
Thank you, Mayor. Boy, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Keith Cook. I'm the Engineering and Transportation Director for here in the city of San Leandro. It's so good to see everyone in real life for a change. I mean, not on Zoom. It's been a long time. But just remember, there is no mute button right now. So if you have to speak to yourself or something is off, make sure you remember to kind of keep the volume down, because we're all going to hear it this time. Before March 2020, I was really looking forward to 2021 coming around. It was going to be a year that we were going to be finishing quite a few projects, and so I was really excited And we have finished those projects, but it's really been challenging to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. So I'm really thankful that we're able to do that for this project. So we still have some COVID protocols, so we definitely want you to check in if you haven't checked in, just in case, so we're all prepared. Why I'm here really is to thank everybody that's really put these projects together, and in particular the staff of the Engineering and Transportation Department. And really through all the adversity that we've had with this pandemic, we were still able to get this project complete. And there were a lot of challenges. You know, when you deal with an existing building, everything is a little bit more complicated because there's a lot more unknowns. But this year has been a good year. We haven't had as many big celebrations, but you know, things like Farley Pool, you know, projects like Farley Pool have been completed. The Boys and Girls Club pool is done, and we've gotten quite a few streets rebuilt in the city this year. And so I'm quite proud of what everybody has been doing in our department. And today, especially with the completion of the Helen Lawrence building and also the Surlene Grant Community Room, it's really kind of taking us over to this new millennium, this new decade. That's the first half of the project. We still have a little left to do. We're still working in the dispatch area in the old police building, and that will be soon done in early 2022. Now, I'm just going to give a couple tidbits. This building was originally a courthouse. It was the Alameda County Courthouse building. And there were actually 2 courtrooms in there and ancillary offices. So that has transformed over the years. And in fact, in one of the courtrooms, there was actually a theater company. And there was a small stage and theater seating that was in there. And when you go in there, you'll see that that has all gone away. We've even had Recreation and Human Services was actually in part of the office areas that were there before. And then there was also another small, it was a good sized conference room called our South Office Conference Room affectionately. And everybody remembers that space because we used it quite a bit. But it was definitely dark and a little dreary and wasn't quite as inviting as our new space. And so I think when you see that, you'll see that it's transformed. And that was all done with a pretty large team. And I want to thank our project manager for the bulk of the project, Kyle Lee. He'll be giving one of the tours. He's somewhere over here. And part of that team is our architect, Indigo Heyman and Plale. Bruce Plale is over here. I probably pronounced his name wrong, but he's part of that team. And then our contractor is DL Falk Construction. I haven't seen Jim. Jim DeLeon is the construction superintendent. On our team, Dave Perry is the inspector, and then Jason Zielinski is the inspector of record from CTS. And so this project is, with all said and done, all the things that we've done, it's close to $10 million with design and construction. So there's a lot of work that went into all of this. So last but not least, I do want to mention in the Surlene Grant Room, we had a special contractor for the AV work, and that was EIDIM. And Tim Pack, there he is over there, is our contractor to help put that all together, and you'll see some fabulous AV equipment in there. The inspector was Dave Perry. Our consultant was Guidepost for AV and Glass Architect. And so with that, we definitely thank you all for being out here today. And I'm going to turn it over to our police chief. And he can tell you a little bit more of how they're using this space day to day. Chief Bridget.
Thank you, Keith. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see all of your faces, half of them, with the mask. But I know rain was going to be a concern, but I called in a favor earlier, so we should be good for the next hour. But this is really an honor for me to be able to represent the police department and talk a little bit about what the Surlene Grant Community Room means to us and what it will allow us to do that we historically would not have been able to do. As you know, in any city, particularly a city like San Leandro, where many people are wanting to come live because it's a very inviting environment, a very inclusive community, we've got to grow as well in order to meet those community demands. And where we used to and currently work, we didn't have the capacity to expand and increase our service delivery that the community wants and expects. So what we now have in the new community room here and also the new expansion is we've put traffic and records together, which historically we've not been able to do. That allows community members to come in and it's sort of a one-stop shop. If it's an accident or anything related to that, they can get all their needs met over there. I think one of the other important aspects is, I truly believe as a leader, and most leaders in here will agree, if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your customers. And so one of the things that we have here is an opportunity for employees to exercise, which is incredibly important. Because a healthy mind is a healthy person and they make really good decisions and are better able to engage our community. It was actually one of the things that surprised me when I came here and took a tour, because not many departments have that for their employees, and not just police department employees, but employees all across the city. The other thing is they've got quiet rooms. If someone just needs to go and take a moment to relax, catch their breath, get their mind right, and go back out and serve our community. And I would say the most important aspect is the community room. We are a community-oriented police department, and it's important for us to look for unique and creative ways of engaging our community. So, although we'll be in the communities, we also will have meetings here, and we'll have members of the community take advantage of that, where if they don't want to meet with us or they just want to meet separate and apart, they can do that. But I see that as a huge resource and capacity that we didn't have before. Our dispatch center, it's really small. It's not able to accommodate all the things that we need to provide to our current staff. And because we have moved some of that staff out, we're now able to expand and create opportunities for them to exercise, to, again, rest and relax, and create opportunities for them to better serve our community by getting a clear head and stepping away from the phones or from the call lines. Some of you might not know I've had an opportunity to meet Ms. Grant on a couple of occasions, and we jokingly, and she might have to explain this to you at a separate point, but we are Stop Six cousins. So I got here from Fort Worth, Texas, and she had family from the Stop Six region of Fort Worth, so we've got a connection there. But just phenomenal leader. She's done some amazing things for the city. And again, we're honored to be able to carry her name forward as part of our police department and part of our effort to engage our community. So again, I just want to thank you all for being here and for honoring Ms. Grant, and we look forward to giving you a tour of the facilities after the program. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, but without further ado, the person we really want to hear from today, Surlene G. Grant.
Okay, thank you all. So this, I'm getting new instructions. Thank you all, I'm getting new instructions. So first of all, I'm just here right this moment, as I understand it, to introduce my guest. And so I think, if I heard or didn't hear correctly, I think we overlooked Diana Souza as a council member earlier. Diana Souza, former council member who sat by my side for many years. And since I have this moment of personal privilege, I will say that Diana saved my life literally twice as a city councilor. Once we were at the League of California, National League of Cities conference somewhere in the Midwest, and we went to a forum on immigration rights. And this was 20 years ago, so it wasn't even as crazy as it is now. And the man behind me was from the South, and the man in front of me was from the North, and they started fighting, literally having this argument, you're calling me a racist, you're doing this, you're doing that, and they were about to go to blows, and Diana kind of said, like a church usher, why don't you come move? and so Diana has my heart for that. I was going to introduce my mother a little later, but I'll do it now. My mother is here. So something you need to know, this is my mother. My mother, her name is, what you probably don't know, is that I'm named after my mother. So my mother is Surlene Grant as well. And my mother was named after her aunt, who was Searle, and my grandmother's best friend, who was Lean, so Surlene. So this name is 3 generations long, and it comes from, they herald from, as the chief, my cousin said, Stop 6, which is a historically black community in Fort Worth, Texas, now part of Fort Worth, Texas. For many, many times, it was many, many years, it was unincorporated, much like Ashland is to San Leandro. And so that's the history of this room. So you need to know that this room comes with this name, and the name of the room comes with a lot of history. Other special guests here, like if I name you all, I could look at you and tell you all a story about how you played a role in this moment, how we got here, how you played a role in supporting my life. We would be here all day if I did that, but there are friends, there are neighbors, there are colleagues, there are coworkers, friends from when my first friend, my cousin is here, Kathy. She's gonna hate that I did that, but we're 6 months apart, so we are each other's first friend. My pastor's here, other members of the clergy are here who have supported me through everything. So I see you all. I don't want to take a lot of time calling you out. I do want to acknowledge Bernard, who is here. We'll hear from him, and I'll have some more comments to say about Bernard Ashcraft. But we are here because of Bernard. If it wasn't for my parents and Bernard and God, we would not be here. We are here because of Bernard Ashcraft. We are here because he 5 years ago made a proposal and carried it forward and got people to come and speak to it, and I'll speak more to that a little later. So I think those are my acknowledgments at this point. Bob, they would like you to come up.
Good afternoon. I think the one thing that they wanted me to speak about is how we got to the point where we've elected our first African American woman in San Leandro. Today is a lot different than years ago. You can now see the color of this community. I became a commissioner in the 70s. And just before that, I was a youth commissioner on the first Youth Advisory Commission. And at that point in time, everything looked white. There wasn't much diversity at all. And it was just 4 years after that the first African American, a man named Larry Taft, who had moved to San Leandro, ran for city council in 1974, which was unheard of. He was not elected, but it got people starting to think. The news media had years before and continued on to talk about San Leandro and how there was only 7 African American families in San Leandro, and the majority of them lived on 1 block. Larry had moved out to Marina Fair, which was unheard of. Well, after Larry's defeat, him and I got to join together, and we were both appointed. He was the chairman, and I was a member of the Human Resource Commission at that time, which was charged with the city to make change, to bring things forward for community groups, the community, social services and such. And we were given a lot of power at that time, even over the CETA programs at that time. But little had changed, and we crept into the 80s, and there was more of an outcry for people that wanted the community to be involved, because councils and like that previous to that were not very responsive, to say the least. And most of them, their biggest goal in life was to get to the city council meeting, make their 7 votes, and usually was 7 ayes, and then go to Jake's for a couple drinks. And that was San Leandro. And so in the 80s, we started to see change. People were more involved, community was more involved. But the council in many ways looked the same. So we start to fast forward into the 90s, and really the 96 event started in 94 with a lot of changes in the city. And then in 96, it ended up a lot of changes in the administration of this city, and a council that truly showed that they were willing to make change. They weren't afraid. And so fast forward to 98, and we had a vacancy because Mayor Sheila Young had been elected, and she came from the council District 2. And so we had an opening in Council District 2. And so we had a number of candidates, good candidates, some of them with good pedigrees, had been involved in the community, had been involved in government, had been involved in business. And we had Surlene. And Surlene had been involved in the community, but in far less ways. But she was one that came to us as a person that was eager and willing to get out there and do things, no matter who you were. So it came that night, we did all the interviews, and we had a couple of votes, and it finally ended up, we got to a 6-6 tie. And so on the 6-6 tie, we needed one person to change. And so it was, as Surlene reminds me many times, it was kind of my task at that point in time is to give one of my glowing oratoricals of why we knew somebody was needed to be there. And it wasn't so much that Surlene needed to be there, and my address was really to one of my colleagues who I knew was very progressive, that believed the same things that I did, but was hesitant. And that is that we have gone through years of saying we want change. We have gone through years of expecting things to change. But that night, and as we said, if not now, when? And so it ended up, the cut to the chase, that night ended, the vote had changed, and Surlene was elected. And with Surlene, we had talked before, because 2 of us were up for election in the next election. And so we always told Surlene, your success is our success. It's not just an experiment. You can do it. You can be the change agent. You can be that person. And I can say honestly to this day, she was the person who started the change. And a lot of people here today, and after that day, would not have been there if she hadn't been the one to start. And so Surlene, this is well deserved, and I have enjoyed quite a few years with you as my colleague, and I do appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Maya Angelou says, you may not remember what people said, but you remember how they made you feel. Bob is that guy. Bob, actually, I'm going to introduce Bernard, so I'm going to do this little segue real quick. Both Bob and Bernard I met before I even came to San Leandro. They worked for the city of Oakland. I worked for the city of Oakland. Bernard worked for the council member for West Oakland, District 3, I think it was. And Bob was working for the IT department that he later came to direct. And so I knew Bob. Bob was the guy who made my computer work because I was learning how to work on Macs and some other things. And he was soft-spoken and everything. And then when the opportunity came about, and somebody said, well, that's Bob Blaze. And I was like, Bob Blaze? So between Bob Blaze and Bernard, who I'll bring up in a minute, it's a Sunday school lesson, I'll call it. It's a Sunday school lesson that you never know when you're going to meet somebody and how they're going to come back into your life again. And so that's just that little story. So as we move forward, we've heard a lot about Bernard. I'm going to bring Bernard up. Bernard had this organization called African Americans for a Better San Leandro. I should know, I'm sorry. And they were looking for a candidate. And so, as everybody tells the stories, Bob talks about that vote night. Bernard was working on African Americans for a Better San Leandro. There was a gentleman named Artie Fields who worked in City Hall. He was assistant to the city manager. There might have been maybe, I'm being generous, maybe 5 African Americans working in leadership positions in the city at the time. And I had a problem, and Artie was dispatched to manage me. And at the time, we were doing a lot of phone conversations, and we didn't know that we were each African American, because you all know how that can be. We had our professional phone voices. And so one day we met, and Artie was talking to me, and Artie said, have you ever thought about running for city council? And I said, yes. And I thought about winning the lottery and being Miss America, but you just got to go on. You're laughing, but as my friend says, you're laughing, but that really happened. And you just got to go on. And Artie said, no, go talk to a man named Bernard Ashcraft. And I said, Bernard? I know Bernard from Oakland. So, Bernard, please come. I owe you so much, so much. He's my mentor, he's my friend, he's the community elder with unity in the community. We would not be here. This city would not be what it is if it were not for Bernard.
All right. Well, it's so good to see all you beautiful people here on this fantastic day. I really appreciate seeing you and being a part of this city. Let me just give you a very brief description of how we got to this point. We had a unity in the community meeting, Rose at your place. And during that meeting, I suggested that Surlene should receive some type of accolade for being the first African American to serve on the city council. But you know what? I hope that the day will come when we don't have to have any more firsts. No more first African Americans. No more first Hispanics. No more first LGBTQ. No more first Native Americans. We need to be under one big tent for a more perfect union. And we can do that by working together. At that meeting at Davis Street, there were a couple of people who were opposed to it. And of course, I've always had a lot of opposition, and I love good trouble. And so, 2 weeks later, we had a march from the high school to Roots Park. And a lot of people joined us, and we had some speakers. They had a microphone, and I've never seen a microphone that I didn't like. So I got up, and I made the proposition to the people who were there. Got a pretty good round of applause. And Ursula Reed was on the city council. Ursula Reed then took it in the House. She introduced it to the council. We had a few bumps in the road, but here we are. And let me just say that This is such a fantastic day, and I just want to leave you with this. The arc of the moral universe is very long, but it bends toward justice. This is the day that we begin a major transition in San Leandro, and for me, this is a big kickoff to the rebranding of San Leandro. This is a big step for that. So I want to thank you, and Surlene, I love you, and I know you went through some tough times during those days, but hey, you survived, and you kept on believing. You kept getting up. And we said, don't give up, don't give in. Together, we can win.
Thank you, Bernard. And next, when they were telling me about this and it was becoming very real and we had a date, there was only one thing I asked. And I asked it when the former police chief was the police chief, and I asked it when our current chief came, and that was that there would be a moment of dedication and reflection on this building so that it would indeed be a community building, a building that built community, a building that bridged. The irony of this building, the irony of my work in my life, and the irony of this building being the community room in this building sharing walls with the police department administration is not lost on me. And so I asked Reverend Dr. Martha Taylor from the Allen Temple Baptist Church, a resident of San Leandro and a good friend, to come and make this offering.
This is a wonderful time in the program to just have a word of prayer. You know, before the program started, Surlene and I had been texting each other, and she says, dress real warm. But I guarantee you, she said at 1 p.m., the sun will shine. So today, the sun is shining on a wonderful, wonderful event. Shall we pray? Eternal God, thank you for being in our midst today. We are gathered as a community to pray a blessing for the ribbon cutting ceremony. We pray for those who labored in the background to make this occasion possible. We pray for elected and appointed officials and the work they do. We remember the first female elected mayor, Helen Lawrence, some 80 years ago, whom this building was named after. Today, we celebrate another first, the community room named in honor of Surlene Grant. We know her journey was not easy. She carried the burden of being the first Black elected member of City Council. Surlene framed her works with compassion and equality for all. This ribbon-cutting ceremony is not about Surlene being the first Black. We are not here to celebrate the color of her skin. We are gathered to do more than witness a ribbon-cutting ceremony to a brick-and-mortar building. Today represents a new beginning. We cut the ribbon that reflects the strides that this beautiful city has made from a dark past to the marvelous light. We cut the ribbon that opens the doors for this community room to be a space that represents community, culture, and customs of all people. We cut the ribbon where conversations about diversity and understanding will be welcome. We cut the ribbon that the community room is a bridge that symbolizes trust, loyalty, and friendship between city administrators, police, and all citizens of this community. Today, we cut the ribbon. We celebrate and sing a song facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Amen. Okay, in a moment we're going to cut that ribbon. And so
I did not acknowledge my father, who many of you met when I was on the city council. And so this is that moment when they say, this is the moment that the ancestors dreamt of. My father was the person who couldn't watch, like many men in his generation, who could not watch Mississippi Burning or Selma or any of those things because he lived through them and they would bring him to tears. And this moment would bring him to tears as well. He would be sitting right next to my mother, and he would be so proud. And so I have to honor that. And so as I reflect on this day and I see all of you, I want to thank, as has already been expressed, I want to thank the formations of all the city councils I worked with over 10 years of servant leadership. I want to thank the City Council of Bob Blaze, Joanne Lothrop, the late Gary Leffler, Mayor Emeritus Sheila Young, Linda Nardine, and Gordon Galvin, the first City Council I worked with. The City Council that voted on this proposal that Bernard put forth, led by Ursula Reed, the Library and Historical Commission members that made the recommendations, the 3 different city managers who had a hand in this. 3 different city managers. This is how much of an impact this was to San Leandro. People had to wrap their heads around it. The city engineering department and the police department. And then countless of other people who came to committee meetings, who testified and spoke at public meetings and hearings. I'll never know who all of you were. I didn't go to those meetings for reasons that you all remember and understand why. So I want to thank you, because if it wasn't for you, this would not have happened. Today is the result of a changed community. This city is no longer the place as documented by Robert O. Self in American Babylon, where white men of a certain ilk and a business class made policy decisions, as Bob alluded to, and where de facto housing segregation was in practice long after the fair housing laws were in place. It's no longer the place where the only city-sponsored affordable housing was built outside of the city limits. We have a city that's looking for places to house San Leandro residents in San Leandro. San Leandro is not unique with these things. Other communities have had these challenges, but what was unique about San Leandro is how long these practices and policies stayed in place. I was the one who made the change. That, in some ways, is ridiculous. We're in the Bay Area, you know? But that's what was supposed to happen, and it did. These policies stayed in place often with the help of the business community, the real estate community, and the police department. And to be real, African Americans, we know, our relationship with the police in any city, and especially in this city, has been complicated and complex. And today we go from a history of being stopped, even I was stopped across the street from my own house, for driving through the town to get home, to working with an African American police chief. And what we are witnessing now is how our city has changed, to be more inclusive, to be more diverse. A city working through its challenges in collaboration with community. The San Leandro demographic shift from 1990 to 2000 was phenomenal. When I first moved here 28 years ago, it was totally predominantly white. In the 10 years since then, we've gone from a history of predominantly white to a city that does not have a majority population, to a city that if you Google it right now will show up on a whole bunch of different databases as the most diverse city, socioeconomic and racially diverse city, top 10 in the United States. So depending on, so you have heard me say, I do the things I do in San Leandro because I want the community to be a place that I want to live and not that I have to live because, oh, I got stuck here. So it is my hope that this community room, with my name on it, with my mother's name on it, with my aunt's name on it, reflects a place of belonging so that other people will want to be here too. Thank you. Thank you, I forgot. I'm supposed to introduce the closing song. So the other thing I asked for, besides Reverend Martha, was that our closing song, as we prepared to cut the ribbon, would be Lift Every Voice and Sing. So, if you don't know, Lift Every Voice and Sing is the Black national anthem. It was written by James Weldon Johnson and the music by his brother, Rosamond Johnson, It's a song of the civil rights movement. It's a song from the NAACP. It's a song of protest and praise, fortitude and faith. And there's a stanza that we probably won't hear today, but there's a stanza in there that says, "Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. Let us march on to victory." Thank you all for this occasion. I didn't think I was going to cry, but hey, y'all know me.
Get ready to cut the ribbon. I want to make sure that people know that there are tours, as I talked about before. If you look to the police building, there will be people there that are going to take people in tours, and we'll do that after we cut the ribbon. So if we could ask the council, council members, you know, I don't know how wide our camera is, but let's say council members present and past, and maybe future, but we don't know who you are yet. So come on up and we'll cut the ribbon. We've got stairs.
Wait, they're holding the phone for us, right?
Everybody, my brother showed up too.
Not yet. It's still rolling, right? Yeah. Oh, you paused it? Huh? It wasn't blinking like that before, though.
Surlene Senior.
It was definitely solid every time I looked at it, so should be okay.
Maybe I did bump it.
Huh?
Maybe I did bump it.
I think you bumped it on accident.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
I was like, well, come in front.
They do know this is not a still camera, right?
Well, applicants are taking photos.
Okay, cool.
See
Okay.
Well, Surlene, congratulations.